Hi there and good evening. My name is Ben Upton. I work with Family Legacy in Nashville, Tennessee. And I want to take a few minutes to talk with you about something that's really important to all of us at this time in the cemetery funeral business, which is phone prospecting. I've often believed that the number one reason for success or failure in this business is our commitment to making phone calls to the families that we serve. And so I just thought it was a good time just to talk for you a few best practices, and hopefully you take this information and you share some things back that we can continue to do better. You can probably say, well, Ben, that's not quite right. And I'll tell you, I only speak from our experience and things that we're currently doing and things that I've done myself. So when we think about making a phone call with someone, it's about, really finding a way to engage that family. We've got to have families to be able to engage with. So as you're going through, whether you're a salesperson watching this or if you're a sales leader that's got a team of folks that you're responsible for, it's your obligation to them, in my opinion, to make sure, number one, they have people to call. And so we eliminate objections. Do you have people to call? And do you know what to say? And so during this time, if they've got people to call and they know what to say, then it's just a matter of focus and effort. And so that focus and effort needs to be, well thought out. If they're going to sit down to make phone calls, they need to know who they're calling. They need to know why they're calling those folks, what their end objective is, which should be to set an appointment, right? And then really, are they ready to make phone calls? Because being ready is important. Are you right in your mindset? Do you need to put a mirror by there and be smiling and dialing like many of us have done? But ultimately, have your mindset right where you're open. I try to be a blank slate when I'm calling a family because I don't know what their mood is. But there's a lot of reasons I can call people and a lot of objections that they can give me. So if I'm calling, someone that we've served in the past, if I'm calling, someone that showed interest in something and had a reason for me to reach out to them, they sent a survey back, or they were a direct mail lead, or a web lead, or Facebook, or all these different sources we have flowing into us. We need to be able to first have an expert persona about where they're at and what they're going through. And we're in interesting times. All of us are trying to figure this out. And COVID-19, as it's spread throughout the world, has changed the way we do business. So we have to be relevant to these families, and I think we also have to keep in mind that we don't know exactly what they're going through on the other end of the phone. So for me to be able to call someone and say, this has been over at Harpeth Hills Memory Gardens, what is their initial reaction going to be? And it's probably even more prevalent now that I'm not interested because we don't want to talk about death and dying. But think about this: they are hearing it. It's on the news. They're talking about mortality rates. Death is on the mind of our customers more so than it's probably been in any of our lifetimes. And beyond that, think about what's happening in their own home, right? Are they locked in, right? Are they sitting at home and maybe they're looking for an outlet? Maybe they're looking for something to do. But you won't know the answer to those questions until you really have a dialogue with them and say, you know what? Hey, John, this has been Upton over at Harpeth Hills down the road. Hey, I know things are crazy right now. First, I just wanted to follow up and check in with you and see how you and your family are holding up. And so what am I doing? I'm putting it out there, and you say, well, Ben, you don't need to call and ask, how they're doing or how they're holding up. Do you really care? Well, I do, because in order to have an appointment with them, I've got to have some understanding as to where they're at and what their mindset is, and me asking them how they're holding up. I don't want to ask how they are. They could say good or bad, right? And it kind of leads me down to a dead end. But how you holding up just gives me an opportunity to hear what they say back. Ben, man, I'm out of work. Man, I've got cabin fever. I'm tired of being here. And it allows me to engage in a little bit of a conversation, creating that dialogue where they respond back. Now, nothing works 100% of the time. They could say, I'm not interested, and hang up, and you say, well, Ben, what you said didn't work. You're right, it didn't that one time. But on the large scale of things, you make 100 calls and you're engaging your families, it's going to work a lot more times than it doesn't. And it's about the percentages. We all know that making phone calls is something you have to do on a consistent basis. And if we could set, 4 appointments out of the 10 people we talk to, is that acceptable? Sometimes you might get 6 and sometimes you might get 2. But it's important that we do measure what that is and keep our phone conversation very focused. What is our goal? Our goal is to set an appointment. And so once I've engaged the family in some way, and you can do this in your own language, you don't have to say, how are you holding up or any of those things. You might find another way to say these things. You might say, hey, listen, I know we hadn't talked in a while, but this has been over at Harpeth Hills, and I wanted to follow up with you during these times where everyone's either staying at home or they're concerned because they're the ones that are considered essential now if they're working and they don't want to bring this home to your family. I just first wanted to check in with you. Is your family doing okay? And they're able to answer that. So engaging can be any number of things. It might be that I've got a CRM that has good notes and it allows me to kind of go back to the last conversation I had, and I'd always start with that, right? So if you're not using some kind of CRM or some kind of database to be able to keep track of your information with that family, then you need to create one, because maintaining that relationship, if we know that 80% of the sales happen after the sixth contact, it's important for us to continue to maintain that contact with them. And so it becomes if anybody's played Plinko on The Price is Right, and I know anybody that knows me gets tired of hearing that, but to me, I've got all these different tools I'm going to offer a family. And whether it's, you call it a Final Wishes planner like we do, or a Final Wishes organizer, or a personal planning guide, or an emergency record guide, we've heard all these different terms, but it's a book that helps a family gather and organize all their information to help them, put an intentional plan in place so their family will know what their wishes are. If God forbid there were a death in their family tomorrow, right? Or if something were to happen in their family, when that event happens, they're going to at least know, and they're going to have a plan. And there's no fault for anyone in being better prepared. Families are going to appreciate knowing that their loved ones' wishes are being honored. We all know these things, and if you don't, this is a great reminder. But this booklet, is really designed to help those families gather and organize, right? So if you're helping them do that, and I've engaged my customer, I say, now listen, I don't show where I ever got you one of our Final Wishes planners. This is a really great book that helps you gather and organize all the information your family would need if, God forbid, there were a death in your family. And I've got some time available on Thursday or Friday. Which day would be better for me to bring this to you? And you might say, well, Ben, I want to do mornings or afternoons, or you want to do, again, I think we're kind of splitting hairs. I mean, at the end of the day, I always give two options with setting an appointment, whatever's most comfortable for you. And then you start overcoming objections. And what are those objections? Right now, maybe families don't want to meet. And they say, we probably need to do this. My wife and I have been talking about it, but now's just not a good time. And I say, I understand that, right? Because I don't say I understand lightly. I do understand now's not a good time for a lot of families, because they're putting their health in danger if they feel like they're getting out and having contact with people. So be aware of that. Know that that's going to be one of the objections. Part of handling objections on the phone or in person is knowing what the objection is going to be before it's said. I'm okay with him saying it's really not a good time right now. It's really never a good time to talk about this, but being safe is really important. I'm sure staying home with your family is important, right? And he says, well, yeah, it is important. So I'm acknowledging, that objection and giving it validity a little bit. And I say the cool thing is, are you at home where you've got access to a computer? And they say, well, yeah, I've got access to a computer. Or, if they don't have that, do they have a smartphone? And I can say, one of the good things that we've been able to do is help families through having an appointment where you can stay in your home, you can log into your computer, and I'll give you a call at the time we designate. So let's plan to do that. Is Thursday good, or would Friday be better? And go ahead and set that time. They say Friday's good. Would mornings or afternoons be better? And then they say mornings. Well, would 9 o'clock be good, or would 10:30 be better? Great, 10:30 on Friday, and I'll give you a call at the appointed time. That's all you have to do, is just be there to answer your phone, and I'll walk you through the rest. And so we have it set up where we can have these kind of virtual meetings, but one of the things that I've tried to share is that we don't want to tell a family to have a virtual meeting. What do we want to do? Just ask them, hey, do you have access to a computer? And that way it's not technology, it's not scary, it's just something very simple for them to go through and say, you know what, I do have a computer, and then that's great. I can help you, right, from the comfort of your own home. So what are the other objections? Now's just not the time to talk about this. You're right. It's never a good time to talk about death and dying, right? I'm not interested. How do you respond to these objections? And how you respond is going to determine how you move forward. So when someone says to me, I'm not interested, everybody that could possibly watch this video, or everybody that I've ever trained, if you're not ready for, I'm not interested, you probably need to choose another career path, because no one's interested in talking about death and dying. But I can tell you that everybody's going to talk about it one day, and everybody's going to buy it one day, whether it's them writing the check or their loved one in the funeral home. We all know this. So it's not selling anything. You have to kind of put sales in the back of your mind. But what I want us to do is understand that when I say, I want to get this book to you, and they say I'm not interested, I say I don't blame you. I'm not interested in talking about death and dying either, and I work with a funeral home. And I'm sure you'd agree that to avoid talking about this really leaves your family in an uncomfortable position because they don't know what you want. And that's really why I'm offering you your Final Wishes Planners, to be able to help you have a plan in place. And how do they respond to that? And you can say, well, Ben, they're going to hang up on me. Well, if they hang up on you, that's okay, right? I mean, I think my goal has always been for them to say, Ben, I wish I had it, not Ben, why didn't you tell me, right? So I can go to them and say, you know what, I don't blame you for not being interested. Most people aren't, including me. But I'm sure you'd agree that having a plan in place for what your wishes are would be beneficial for your family, right? And really all it does is take a few minutes for me to go over this information with you and help you put an intentional plan in place. Same thing when I get, not right now. Well, now's not a good time. I don't disagree with that, right? Now is never a good time to plan for our arrangements. But the part we all struggle with is, when is a good time? Because now not being a good time continues on and on and on, right? It's never going to be a good time. So you have to understand how to overcome that objection. If you've engaged with the family a little bit, it becomes a lot easier to be able to overcome the objections. When they say, I just want to talk to my kids first before I make any decisions, one of my goals is to really help you have a conversation with your kids. And in order to help you do that and to be able to have an intelligent conversation, I think they need to kind of know what you want. Let me help you get this book filled out, get a plan in place. That way you've got something to share with the kids and talk with the kids about. Embrace the objection. The objections are this, meaning, look, I need more information. I need you to clarify exactly what's going to happen. And I need to take the big scary idea of death away. And so other objections you may get, please shoot me a message. Just let me know if there's something you want to discuss at more length. I wanted to keep it short, but I think it's important that we have a dialogue with our families, that we're open to the discussion about our final arrangements. Most people, that we talk to, they only know one thing. How much is it? Or how much is this? And that price is very important to families. I get that, and I think you should acknowledge that. But when you're talking to families, price is the least important part of this process. When families think I'm going to come sell them something, I can't sell you something you're already going to buy, right? So it's important for us to pull back. Look, I'm not here to sell you anything. My goal is to help you have a plan in place for your family. And I'm sure you'd agree that having a plan in place for what you want before you go buying something is a good idea, right? And what can they say to that? Most families agree that having some kind of plan before they start shelling out money is a good idea. So if you leave here with nothing else, make the phone calls, engage your family, right? Find a way to engage. And once you've engaged, give them something of value, a Final Wishes planner, a veterans benefit guide, an aftercare packet, all the tools that we have at our disposal that cost the family $0. Use those tools to help you open the door to the relationship. And it's your job to go in and continue to narrow that down to provide value and overcome those objections. There's no reason not to overcome. Now's not a good time. I want to talk to my kids. I'm not interested. I want to wait till this is over, right? And I hear that quite a bit. So whatever those objections that you're getting, there's a way to overcome them. If they say, I want to wait till this is over, we don't know when this is going to be over. But I do know that one day that one of us is going to have to plan for funeral arrangements, right? Both of us are really going to have to go through and make these plans. So it's important for us to, again, overcome the objection and acknowledge what they've said. I can't wait for it to be over myself. But I'm sure that you'd agree having a plan in place in the meantime while you're at home, right? Right? I know that because I've engaged with them. If they're at home or they're having to work, these are kind of things that we want to really find out through our engagement process with a family. Call them by their name, have a personal conversation, and be ready to make those calls. So if I can help in any way, please let me know. Again, Ben Upton, Family Legacy in Nashville, Tennessee.